Hey everybody, we're back. Today's episode 2608. It is going to be a fast one. We're going to get through, should you avoid salt? And if not, how much sodium should you take in per day? If you do take in sodium, what is the other mineral that you need to be absolutely on top of so that you do not become imbalanced, that you don't end up with high blood pressure, kidney stones, potentially kidney disease, stroke, anxiety, overabundance of stress on the nervous system, and so much more. I'm going to explain all of that on today's show, but just remember, you can get all the 3 big takeaways as well as all the other pertinent shows that I'll be linking to at stephencabral.com/2608. Remember, every single day's podcast is completely free. So everything is there. And you can even ask questions as follow-ups during the show if you'd like over at cabralsupportgroup.com. All right, let's dive in. Every single day, there is a certain amount of a specific mineral and vitamin that the body requires. Now, it's based on, typically we base these on a 2,000 calorie diet, but you can pretty much take it in. If you're an adult and you weigh somewhere around 110, 120 pounds, all the way up to like 220 pounds, that's gonna be the right amount for you. You have to understand is like, there's no way to tell you the exact to the milligram amount that you need because you'd have to take into account your age, your metabolism, how much you sweat, how much you exercise, what's your nervous system type like, what's your metabolic type, like there's so many things to look into. But the bottom line is this, is that we know how much you should be taking in. We've known that actually for decades. So the amount of sodium that you're essentially allocated to be able to take in per day is 2,300 milligrams. 2,300 milligrams, I'm going to be going over that to see if that's actually the right amount or not, and then let you know the balance to that. Now, before we do that, understand that there are many people out there that they say, well, you shouldn't be taking in salt because if you do, you'll end up with high blood pressure. Okay, I want to share with you that is not absolutely true. It is, now for all the people who say salt has nothing to do with high blood pressure, that would also be incorrect. What you want to look at is something called bioindividuality. There is actually a genetic marker that makes people more susceptible that when they take in sodium, they get a little bit more swollen, a little bit more puffy, they retain a little bit more water, they're more sensitive to sodium. There is actually a gene for that. Now, regardless of whether you have the gene or not, it doesn't mean that you're going to end up with kidney stones or high blood pressure, etc. Even if you have that gene, if you take in sodium, it's not how it works. That is not how the human body works. There is something called a balancing mineral. So I've talked about this before. Calcium has magnesium as a balancing mineral. Magnesium has calcium as a balancing mineral, right? Zinc has copper as a balancing mineral. Copper has zinc. Well, sodium and potassium are partners. They're essentially, they work together, so they're agonists, but they're also antagonists. Meaning if you take more of one, it decreases the other. And it also throws off the systems of the body when you take in one out of balance with the other. And let me give you potassium's intake for the day. It's 4,700 milligrams. That means it's in a 2-to-1 ratio. Now, I'm going to give you why we do 2.5 to 1 in natural health and naturopathy, but we'll talk about that in just a moment. But 4,700 milligrams a day of potassium, 2,300 of sodium. Here is the issue. There's a lot of people that are more prone to high blood pressure, edema, water retention, kidney stones, kidney damage in general, cardiovascular issues, heart murmurs, and much more. Why would that be? Well, doctors will tell you to be on a low sodium diet. It's not that they're incorrect. It's just that you wouldn't have to be on a low sodium diet if you increased your potassium. Because the modern world and processed food is loaded with sodium, but not potassium. Where do you get potassium from? Fruits and vegetables, right? You get some in other things as well, and I can share those with you. I'll give you a whole podcast on high potassium foods that you can check out, but fruits and vegetables. How many fruits and vegetables are there in the average American's diet? I've done this on the show. 1 serving or less per day. What about in children's diet? 2 servings or less per day. Why is children's servings more than adults? Because at school, they count ketchup and French fries as vegetables. If you didn't count those, then it would be back down to adults, which is 1 or less. But if you count ketchup as tomato, well, you got yourself a fruit in there, right? Tomato, really a vegetable, right? But it's considered technically a fruit. So here's the thing. People are not eating potassium. So that's why sodium is having a huge effect on the body. It is not sodium's fault. It's really not. It's the lack of potassium. You could take in even more sodium if you wanted to per day, as long as you took in enough water and enough potassium. But let's start to go into this a little bit deeper. See, in natural health, we've known this forever as well. On a minerals and metals test, that's taking a little bit of your hair. Remember, your hair is a protein. You basically, on a hair tissue test, you burn it down to an ash. Then they look at the minerals in the body and they see what your body's excreting. And we just know, again, like we know, well, I always give this analogy, but it's nonetheless true. I know that if I take chocolate and I burn it down, there's a lot of magnesium. I know that if I take a lemon or lime and I burn it down to an ash and I assess the ash, it's going to be high in potassium. That's how we know foods. The hair is no different. It's an excretionary tissue. It's like taking a fingernail clipping or your hair. Your hair is just an easy way because the nutrients get locked in the hair. You cut the hair, you burn it, you see what the excretion's been like. Anyway, I digress. So when we look at this, we see, oh, people need more potassium than they do sodium. And why we can keep going back to this is that most people are burnt out. Like their nervous system is too stressed. So here's what happens. When you get quite stressed, you have higher levels of aldosterone production. And aldosterone is, we can look at it as a mineral corticoid, but we're looking at it as something that is pushing your nervous system to respond to stress. And when that happens, the body is typically holding on to more sodium. It's using it to get the blood pressure higher, to get more into fight or flight. That's why high blood pressure, you can't look at it as a single facet health issue. Okay, lower salt. Sure, you can lower salt all you want, but if you don't lower aldosterone, then forget about the ratio because you'll just start dumping potassium out of your body. You have to urinate all the time to get it out of the body, right? Because you're trying to basically spare more sodium. So you certainly don't want that. That's going to really damage the kidneys. So what we need to do is we need to be conscious overall of our stress. But I want to go back for one more thing about stress, and that's that you can't just play around with your electrolytes. I believe in electrolytes. I actually do recommend electrolytes, but you don't want to overdo. And the reason is that if you have an imbalance of sodium potassium, you can actually get heart flutters, you can get heart palpitations, you can get arrhythmias in the heart. You need a balance of sodium and potassium. You have to be at the right one. And we look at the standard American diet and we look at like, what do a lot of people eat? They eat what? Sandwiches with cold cuts, right? Or they eat a slice of pizza. One slice of pizza is 1,000 milligrams of salt, of sodium. Think about that. Average slice of pizza could be anywhere from 700 to 1,500 milligrams. I mean, you're looking at 1,000 milligrams basically on average, 900 to 1,000 milligrams for a slice of pizza. That's sodium. Okay, so 1.5 slices of pizza, you met your sodium requirement. Well, let's say this, 2 slices of pizza, you've eaten all the sodium that you should really take in for the day. Like that's basic it for most people. Now, on the flip side, well, let me give you just a couple more. That cold cut sandwich that I talked about, 2,000 to 3,000 milligrams of sodium. Between the bread, remember, just a single slice of bread is 250. I'm not talking about a sub roll, right? Which is absolutely going to be 2,000 to 3,000 milligrams right there of sodium. That's just one sandwich, right, that you've had. Condiments, pickles, like all these different things with high in sodium. So you can look at that, right? Also, though, electrolyte drinks. Keep in mind, if you're already on a high sodium diet, do you need to be taking in more sodium? I don't know, right? I don't know about that. That's why when I recommend electrolyte-based drinks, I'm typically recommending sea salt, right, with a squeeze of lime, more natural version. Sea salt is a little bit different than table salt. When I say a little, I mean a lot. It's 84, right? So it's salt, it's sodium chloride, plus another 83 trace minerals. Right? So it's 84 trace minerals. And when I look at table salt, I'm looking at one mineral called sodium chloride. And it's been bleached. And it's mixed with aluminum often. And it's mixed with iodine. I don't really have an issue with the iodine, just depending if we're taking the right amount. But it's nothing like a natural version of salt. Your body doesn't process it the same way. Where are the missing trace minerals? I know it only makes up 3% or so, but you need it. It's what allows your body to assimilate it to a better degree. So if we don't want the high blood pressure, the risk of stroke, the kidney disease, the kidney stones, the heart and cardiovascular-based issues, what we need to do is take in a healthier amount of sodium potassium every day. And for many people, yeah, they should absolutely remove the processed foods from their diet. I do recommend that. Right away, when you remove the processed foods and you don't oversalt your food, you're gonna be good. You really are. As long as you up your high potassium foods. That is what is missing in most people's diet. It's not that you have to just completely go on a low salt diet. You need to add potassium. And no, it's not just bananas, right? It's not just that. Your doctor's like, well, eat more bananas. Okay, fine. You can have a banana. I don't have an issue with that. But there's other foods that are very high in potassium. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to link up my show on high potassium foods. I've got a show on high magnesium foods. I have a show on all these different things. If you ever can't find a show, honestly, just ask. Completely free. Just ask at cabralsupportgroup.com. But including things like broccoli and asparagus and avocados. Like avocados are very high in natural potassium. So definitely add some of those. Apples are great. What about blueberries, right? Those are fantastic. I'm always talking about that. Cucumbers is a natural diuretic. It's going to help balance the water in your body as well. So, and yes, you can have your bananas. So all of these things are very beneficial for the body. All of your green leafies are going to have potassium, so you can add those in. But this is the way that you truly begin to balance the body. Now, I'll tell you one more part. When the body, if you show low potassium levels on a minerals and metals test, and I can link that up today, it's not a nutritional supplement, so I can link that up. By the way, I don't actually recommend potassium nutritional supplements. I don't. You can take in a little bit, yes. I don't recommend taking in 1,000 to 2,000 milligrams of potassium through a nutritional supplement unless you're specifically working with under a healthcare practitioner's watch, because that can really throw off the heart as well. You have to be careful with that, all right? So don't overdo electrolytes. I mean that. You can take in small dose, couple hundred milligrams, yes. A couple thousand, I'd be a little bit worried about that. There's a popular electrolyte drink on the market right now. I have no ill will towards them. It can be a great product, but it's a 10-to-1 ratio essentially of sodium to potassium. Unless you are someone that sweats profusely, you sweat profusely and you actually can see the salt staining your clothes, you most likely do not need that at full strength. You don't. You most likely need something a little bit more balanced with sodium to potassium. All right, but I digress. The last thing I wanted to add was this. The way out of this, right? The way out of this, and it can take months. It can take months to sometimes even over a year to fully rebalance the nervous system, the cells. I didn't get too deep into it today, but basically sodium is more of an extracellular mineral, meaning it sits outside the cells. Remember, the cells bathe in fluid. The interstitial milieu is what it's called. That's where the nutrients come in and the waste comes out. Well, the cell membrane is what allows that potassium to stay inside the cell, regulate the right amount of water, and sodium to stay outside of the cell. Now, there's a little bit of both, but you get my drift of what I'm saying. Now, for people where the cells are not working properly, you see the swollen ankles, you see the swollen body. That's all the water retention. That's all the edema. That's not body fat. That's toxic water weight from an imbalance. Now, those people are put on typically diuretics and they're told to be on a low sodium diet. Well, I don't necessarily disagree with that, but really what they need is they should be on a high potassium diet. That's what they really need. And that high potassium diet is going to need to be more like a 4-to-1 of potassium to sodium. So not a 2-to-1, but more like a 4-to-1. It's going to have to be like that for some time. So they're going to need to be on a higher fruits and vegetables based diet to actually get those sodium levels down. And that's why this can be highly beneficial for individuals. So for them, maybe they're taking in 1,000, 1,200 milligrams a day of sodium, half of what they would normally get. Well, not normally, but what kind of got them to this point, but then they take in 4,000 to 5,000. Like a 1,200 to 4,700 would be about the right number. So 1,200 milligrams or so of sodium to 4,700 milligrams or so of potassium would work just fine. Again, I can't give you medical advice, medical diagnosis, medical treatment plans, or medical cures, but I would look into this because it works. It's based on science, but even more important, like throw out the science sometimes. Like let's take it easy on all the research studies where you can find anything you want, literally. Let's go back to human physiology. Let's go back to foundational principles. Everything in the body has to stay in balance. It's not about, oh, everything in moderation. Okay, well, 2,000 milligrams of sodium a day might be moderation, 2,300, 2,500, but not if you're only taking in 2,000 milligrams of potassium. That's not moderation, right? So it's all about balance. It's about dynamic equilibrium. The traditional naturopaths knew this. Bioregulatory medicine practitioners knew this. And of course, our integrative health practitioners know this. We talk about this all the time. So this is what it's all about, maintaining balance in the body. Hopefully this helps you answer the question of, should you avoid salt, and how much sodium do you really need per day? All right, take care, everybody. Have an amazing day. Always feel free to share the show with anyone you believe it could serve. Thanks so much for tuning into today's show. Before you go, don't forget to hit that subscribe button. I want to make sure that you're getting our daily content, not missing out on anything. Functional medicine, wellness, weight gain, weight loss, anti-aging, living longer, stronger, and all of the most cutting-edge research. And if there's any topics you want to hear, feel free to leave them in the comments below. Take care.